Okay, council, it looks to me like we are live streaming now, so I will call the meeting to order. I'll please remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interest at the appropriate time. And before we get started on the official part of the meeting, I just want to take a moment to recognize that our country is in mourning following the devastating discovery of the children near the residential school. And just to let council know that our flags are flying at half mast in memory of those children. And we'll just take a moment or two to have a moment of silence in their memory. Thank you, council. We pray that such things will never happen again in this country. We will move on to the minutes of the previous council meeting. We need a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes and receive and file them. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Thank you. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? All in favor of receiving and filing those? That is carried. Thank you. And we will move on to scheduled meetings and events. Is there anything that we need to highlight from those meetings? One thing I will highlight is the deadline to submit delegations for EMO is June 4th. So that is this week. If anyone has any suggestions, please let Amanda or myself know as soon as possible so that we can get that taken care of. And we'll move on to councillors' commitments. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to our calendar coming up? Councillor Westgate?
July 2nd to 10th and August 2nd to 10th.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we will go on to councillors' items. I'm going to start with Councillor Morris today.
Couple quick ones. I don't know for sure, but it looks like there's a gas line going in along Confed coming from Middlesex towards Watford. Just wonder, like, it looks like a gas line. How we're not getting to Warwick Village. Have we heard any more about that?
Yeah, Amanda, do you want to speak to that?
I was going to say, from the municipality's perspective, we have not heard anything further about the gas expansion line. The one going into Warwick Village, I believe, was off of Egremont being extended, but we haven't heard anything recently.
Okay.
I drove by that. It looks more like a conduit for high-speed internet to me.
Oh, could be.
Yes, I'm wondering if that's what it is, because my dad lives down that way and he was saying that they are getting high-speed internet soon.
Just looked like the orange gas line.
Well, that's a conduit for to pull the
Okay.
wires through,
All right.
I believe, but I was questioning it, but when I looked closer, I figured it was.
Okay. The other
Now-
quick question I had.
Just in light of that,
Right.
Councillor Morris, would you like us to try to get a delegation with the Ministry of Energy?
I won't be at the
Fire
conference, Jackie, so that's
But
up to you. I'd
this
like to find out what's
conversation-
going on. We told these people last fall they were gonna get gas.
No,
Or,
it
you know.
was right, it was December of when I became mayor. I remember specifically we were out
Yeah.
on Vermont Road.
So I think we deserve to find an official update rather than not hearing any word. Be nice.
Well, I think it would be worth trying to get a delegation with the Ministry of Energy to get an update on that.
Okay, thank you. The other quick question I had is, I noticed coyotes are running around pretty good. Actually, a neighbor had one run through her backyard. Is there a bounty, or can you hunt them, or what is the ruling on coyotes in the
That's a good
county?
question. Anybody have an answer to that?
I figured Jerry
Councillor
knows.
Westgate.
You can hunt them. There's no bounty in Warwick or any place in Lambton County that I know.
Okay, but
A
there
lot
are.
got killed, or they got a lot this winter, I think. Brandon Group got 60 some, and I know there was probably 200 coyotes killed this winter.
Okay, no, this one ran right by the neighbor's house. I watched it go
Yeah.
by. They're getting pretty bold.
But
Anyway,
there's still
that's
a
all
lot
I-
out there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morris. I'm going to go on to Councillor White. Do you have anything for council today?
Nothing.
Okay, and Councillor Westgate?
So only one small thing. Andrew, we put a new curb in along Sunset there, going down the hill. It's not working. The water's flowing right over it and pushing gravel out onto the lawns there.
Okay.
I know it's still gravel there, but it should be higher so it's down to where it's supposed to go.
I can certainly have a look.
Even if we put grass where the gravel is, it might help.
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's all I had.
That's great. And Councillor Mitchell is going to be a few minutes late, so we'll perhaps catch up with his items when he gets here. And I have nothing for council today, so we're going to move on to staff items and a verbal update from Amanda on the clearing on Kings Court Road.
Oh, thanks, Mayor Rumbus. So as per council's request at our last council meeting, I was directed to look into some reported clearing of trees on, and it was reported Kings Court Road. I've contacted a number of agencies to confirm this site and made a number of inquiries. So today I'm just reporting back to council about what I've learned, and I'm happy to take future direction should you wish to provide it. So I followed up with the Conservation Authority, the St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority, the County Woodlot agent who's employed with the County of Lambton, but a representative of the Conservation Authority as well. In both cases, so I've been informed that the woodlot bylaw from the County of Lambton does not apply to this site that was referenced. Its municipal address is actually on Confederation Line. It does not apply based on the definition of a woodlot. So a woodlot has to meet certain definitions like numbers of trees, numbers of acres, and the woodlot agent, which that's not his correct title, apologies, but he did visit the site in advance. He did review it and deemed that the subject area did not fit within the parameters of the county's woodlot program. And further, the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has also been in contact with the property owner, has reviewed this site, it is my understanding, prior to the clearing and since, and continues to monitor the clearing. There has been some special concern referenced around the removal of trees along the bank of the waterway there. And the Conservation Authority has advised that the owner has been informed that they cannot alter the bank or the sloping at all, and that they are aware of those restrictions, and that to date, their inspections have not revealed that anything has happened that is not permitted. So they continue to work with the Conservation Authority, or the Conservation Authority continues to be in contact with the property owner to monitor the site, and will continue to do so. I did ask both agencies if there was any kind of municipal oversight power, being that I am more unfamiliar with this area of jurisdiction. And they did advise that should the municipality, there may be an opportunity if we wanted to enforce something through our zoning bylaw. However, our bylaws are not quite up to date, and it would be like a legal proceeding, I think, similar to some of those other zoning noncompliance issues that we've seen recently go through court over the last few years. And since the municipality wasn't involved in preliminary investigations, that becomes very challenging. So I wouldn't recommend that course of action for council. But that's the information I was provided to date, and I can do my best to answer questions if you wish, if there are any.
Just to add to the update, Amanda, thank you for that. I did speak with the owner of the land today. He called me quite concerned that we keep referring to the area in question as woodlot. He said it was not a woodlot. I never saw it beforehand, but he said it was a pasture that had some trees out there for shade for the cattle, and it was never considered a woodlot. He did ask the county, he had the county come out. So he was quite upset that it has been referred to as a woodlot. He said he has been working with the Conservation Authority. He is going to put a grass area around the stream to ensure that there's no runoff into the waterway there or into the ditch, as well as across the top of the hill. So he's said, I'm doing everything that the Conservation Authority has asked me and that the county has asked me to do. And I feel like this matter should be settled. So that was his point of view. And I think it's important for council to hear that side of things. So if council has any questions or future actions that they would like to instruct. Councillor Westgate.
I guess I had no problem with the pasture part up on the top where he took the trees off. I don't know how many, whether it was a woodlot or not, I couldn't say. But if he cleared that, I have no real problem with that. But when you start taking the trees off the slope towards the creek, that's what I had the problem with. And I was told he was going to level out it right down to the creek so he could farm to the creek. And that you would get runoff into the creek for sure. Even the fertilizer and stuff that you put on down a slope like that would go in. And that's the only thing I was concerned of.
I know, thank you, Councillor Morris.
Amanda, can you confer back to the conservation area and find the width of the buffer strip that he is to install between the creek bed and the field?
I believe he said he was going to install a 10-foot size. I believe that was what he had said. He said the Conservation Authority didn't even require him to do that, but he was planning on doing that.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you for that update, Amanda. And we will move on to an update from Teresa on the Libro Community Garden.
Thanks, Mayor Rumboats. This is a new initiative. Debbie Penner from Libro approached me earlier this year about their interest in providing a community garden. We did some research, as there was one previously. This one is being done differently in the sense that we've raised boxes, but the Libro volunteers are maintaining the garden with the idea of donating vegetables that have been grown to the local food bank. Being under construction this year, it was difficult to find an appropriate green space. So we are using green space on Sunset, which Parks and Recs maintains already, but there is a municipal drain there. So we are working with Andrew to ensure that we're not putting a fence or anything on top of that drain. And we are behind, unfortunately, because of COVID. We couldn't gather as a group last weekend to be able to build the boxes. So Parks and Rec staff have picked up all the materials and are building the boxes with the Libro volunteers are pre-planting in biodegradable containers so that they can transplant. And we're hoping that by June 19th, that Saturday, that we'll be in at least step one so that we can gather somewhat as a group to be able to put everything in place. And there's a local business that has shown interest in donating a park bench for that area also. So the only thing that will actually be going into the ground will be a sign that I believe says Libro Community Garden. So it's exciting, and congratulations to Libro because, and especially Debbie Penner, she's done so much work on this. So I'm pretty excited to be involved in this part. And Parks and Rec staff, again, have stepped up because we've had to go to Plan B, C, and sometimes D on things because of COVID. And they didn't even, break a sweat when I said, can you pick up all the materials and make the boxes for them? Because they can't gather as a group at this point. So collective effort, but really Debbie and Libro's initiative to come forward to do this.
Thank you so much for that update, Teresa. And on behalf of council, I'd like to thank you and the rest of the Parks and Rec staff for all that you're doing to help local business to get that initiative started, as well as I've been told Parks and Rec was also helping the Watford Warwick Horticultural Society plant the planters along Main Street, and they look beautiful, and I'm sure that they'll get better every day as the weather starts to warm up. So thank you for your efforts there as well. Any other comments or anything about that? All right, we have a few delegations, but we are going to move ahead since they don't start until 6:30. We're going to go to the accounts section. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file the GL summary. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Thank you. Questions or comments on that summary today? Trevor, is there anything you wanted to highlight?
Not a heck of a lot.
Okay. All in favor of receiving and filing that? That is carried. And we have had some technical issues on the side of the county, so we do not have any correspondence on our agenda. That will be put onto the next agenda. That's just information for anyone watching online who know our agendas so well that if they're wondering where those are. We'll go on to staff reports and start with the current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. And we have the proposed newsletter and content for the next newsletter. We need a mover and a seconder for that report. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. Any thing that council would like added to that list of things? It's a good start for sure. All right, so it looks like you've got everything covered. All in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. We'll move on to the East Lambton Community Complex Capital Fundraising Campaign Report. Need a mover and a seconder to receive for that recommendation. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that report? All right, still exciting and in progress. All in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. And we have the East Lambton Community Complex Construction Progress Report. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that one. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Westgate.
They are working inside the arena, taking the washrooms and stuff out, are they?
Yes, until we get our full permit, we are removing items.
Okay. It's exciting to see the work that's already started. Councillor Morris.
Yeah, is there any, I don't know exactly what the parking lot's gonna look like, but is there a way we can preserve those mature trees so they don't take any more trees down? Like, I don't care if they build the parking lot around them. I just hate to see those beautiful trees come down.
I'd have to double check, Councillor Morris, but I believe the only trees on the demolition plan were the ones between the current arena and Centennial Hall. So I think they've already been removed.
So
But I will-
those were the ones that would have been right where the building is
Yeah.
going to stay.
I thought
right?
there was a great big one they took down. I seen a trunk, but I could be wrong.
I can double check, but I
Please,
was pretty
I just
confident,
like
but I
this.
will double check.
save
Yep.
the
I know-
tree. You
There are some very beautiful mature
Yeah.
trees in the park that I would hate to see come down, like near the Centennial Hall,
Yes,
by where the first diamond was, for sure. And perfect for shade for the parking, even if it is right in the parking, you're right. Hey, any other questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Jerry.
What is the problem with the permit? How long before we're gonna get the permit?
We do have that foundation permit, and what was holding up is we had modeling done by two different consultants for grants, but that modeling didn't meet the requirements for the building permit. So we hired someone else to do that, another engineering firm, and that's being worked on right now.
Okay, so we
But
have a
everything else is
foundation,
in place.
we have a foundation permit that can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we actually have, we had a site meeting last week, and they had a month's work at least before we would need the full permit.
That's great. So it's not holding anything up at this point.
Not at this time, no.
Okay, great. Any other questions? All in favor of receiving and filing that update? That is carried. We will move on to the Public Works update for May. We need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that report? Andrew, would you like to highlight something?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Rombouts. Just like to highlight the section. I was going to give a verbal update on the rotor drain culvert, which goes under Burnham Line. Last year, we had some maintenance done on the drain, and that culvert, as it's under 3 meters, isn't part of our regular bridge inspection. And it was noted that it was in poor condition, and it was to be in 2022 budget to be replaced. Well, it's failed prematurely. Things are, we've made it safe, we've patched it, but I believe we should be replacing it as soon as possible. And Trevor has ensured that we do have, actually, we had a doubling of gas tax for this year. So we have it within gas tax funding to fund the replacement of this culvert under emergency.
Okay, would you like a motion to go ahead with that project then, Andrew?
Yes, please.
Okay, moved by Councillor White. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? So that's great. We'll make sure that that gets taken care of as soon as possible. Anything else that you'd like to highlight?
No, there's nothing noteworthy at this time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? All in favor of receiving and filing that report? That is carried. Thank you. And we have time for the Victoria Street and Warwick Street intersection report here. We need a mover. There is a recommendation attached to that report, Council. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation?
Oh.
Councillor Westgate.
Jackie, should we wait for Colin, because this was his thing, really?
We can do that. Absolutely. We have a few.
I hate to
more
pass
minutes.
it without him here.
No, that's true.
We could do committee minutes, Mayor Rombouts, 12A.
Thank you. Let's go down to 12A, which is the minutes of the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of April 28th. Do we have a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. Councillor White, do you have anything you'd like to highlight from those minutes from that meeting?
Oh.
You are muted, Councillor White.
Sure. No, there's nothing really to highlight. I think we're just kind of waiting to see how COVID plays out early for the leagues to start and that type of things.
Right. Okay. All in favor of receiving and filing those? That is carried. All right, there's only a few minutes before we have our first delegation started, so we can move on to go up to that. Amanda, is there some people that are going to be joining us for that meeting? If we want to take a moment
Yes.
to let them in.
Sure, Mayor Rumbus, I will do that now. And I would ask, I didn't ask in advance, can I make some opening comments when we have the all the people join us?
Yes.
Just about our technical difficulties for the audience.
Absolutely.
Sure, I just let everyone in.
Audio.
Okay. Okay, Mayor Rumbos, it looks like we have everyone joined us. One person, two people, one person still connecting to audio. If we just want to wait a minute.
Sure.
I don't know why we're not on camera.
No idea.
We can hear you. I think that was Kathy, and we can see you now.
Okay, good.
Excellent. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, Amanda, do you want to address everyone before we get
Yes.
started?
Thank you, Mayor Rumbo. So welcome, everyone. This is our 6:30 scheduled zoning amendment application proceeding. And so I do just want to advise everyone, firstly, thanks for joining us. And for those viewing us on YouTube, we did receive a number of requests to register for this meeting, and we hope that we got to register everyone directly with email credentials sent to them. However, we have been experiencing as a municipality some IT issues this week. So we do hope that if we missed anyone who had asked to be registered, that they were able to access the meeting through the publicly available Zoom credentials, which are located on the council agenda and also on our website and social media today. Further, we also uploaded, Mayor Rumbout, all of the written correspondence we received on this file prior to the end of day Thursday. If we had received further correspondence since that time via email, unfortunately, due to our IT issues, we would not have had access to it. So we will ensure that this does become publicly available if there is indeed any additional correspondence, and we will make sure that council and the applicant and those in attendance are aware of what additional correspondence was provided, if any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone, just so that you're aware, I'm going to be reading off of our zoning procedure sheet. So there's some formalities to these meetings. So the next item on council's agenda is the holding of the public meeting with respect to an application to amend zoning bylaw and council's consideration of a bylaw to amend Warwick's zoning bylaw 121 of 2012 on lands described as concession 1 NER E part lot 11 S part E3-4 lot 11, known municipally as 7140 Egremont Road in the Township of Warwick. The purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject land from agricultural 2 A2 to open space 2 OS2. The purpose of this rezoning is to facilitate the installation of a private campground. Ms. Gubbles, can you please tell me the method of giving public notice of the meeting and the date that that notice was given?
Yes, Mayor Rumbouts. Public notice was provided of the meeting via regular mail, as well as posted on the property on May 12th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Any person requiring further notice of the passing of the bylaw should give their name and full mailing address to the clerk before leaving the meeting. Any persons present who wish to make oral or written submissions should provide the clerk with their name and full mailing address. Also, any persons wishing to address the bylaw should ask their questions through the chair. The clerk will now read any written submissions.
Thank you, Mayor Rumbouts. So we do have 3 written submissions that were on the agenda today, so I'll just go through them in turn. The first one on the agenda listing is from the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, and it says, the subject property is regulated by the Conservation Authority under Ontario Regulation 171-06 and contains provincially significant wetland features. The proposed rezoning is within the natural hazard on the property as well as adjacent to a provincially significant wetland. The Conservation Authority met with Phil and the landowner today to talk about revising the limit of the rezoning. Once the revision of the limit of the rezoning is complete, we will finalize our comments on the zoning bylaw amendment. The Conservation Authority has already received payment for their comments. So that's one. The second one is dated May 25th and received from Brian Nethercott. And it says, I am in opposition of the zoning bylaw amendment application for 7140 Egremont Road. There are currently numerous trailers in this location. I do not believe they are managing their gray and black water in a manner that will not affect the watershed quality of these conservation lands. The water in their pond flows into the community. Local livestock and pets drink from this water. There are obnoxious odors that arise periodically from this location. I have not seen any trailers leaving this location in the past year to get rid of their waste. Additionally, I am sure that the local conservation campground would not appreciate any use of their disposal facilities for the management of the waste from this location. Furthermore, I do not believe the garbage created by the numerous weekend campers is being adequately managed. There has been a noticeable increase in the number of unwanted wild varmint animals in the neighborhood. I recently had 3 raccoons in my backyard trying to get into my house and were not scared off by my approach. This has never happened before. I have 2 small dogs that could have been injured by these wild animals in my own backyard. My other concern is that if this campground is approved, they could easily expand it to accommodate additional trailers and campers since it is out of sight from the road. I strongly feel that having an additional campground in our area will decrease the home values of the homes surrounding this land. It is normally quiet and peaceful. Lately on weekends, there has been a lot of increased background noise of guns being fired, ATVs being driven, and fireworks being let off. These are my concerns, and I hope that this rezoning amendment will not be granted. Sincerely, Brian Nethercott. And our third written correspondence received is from Joanna Van Diepen, dated May 26th, and it reads, sorry, just there is an introduction, but it does read that they own the adjacent property, namely Concession 1 NER Part Lot 11S Part West Half Lot 11, and wish to make the following observations. In the past, a sewage pipe coming from 7140 was discovered at the edge of the property line, running over onto my side. I am wondering how the sewage from a private campground would be handled and if there would be an inspection done to confirm that it meets the required protocol. If the rezoning is approved, will the owners be required to put up a fence between the properties to prevent campers from trespassing? Would council consider rezoning my property for OS2 classification at the same time? Thank you for your consideration of these concerns. I look forward to a reply of my concerns and your decision regarding this amendment application. Yours truly, Joanna Van Diepen. Thank you, Mayor Rumbouts. Those are the 3 correspondence items we received.
Thank you so much. Any person wishing to address the bylaw should ask their question. Oh, sorry about that. The planner will now give his report.
Okay, thank you. So once I get the top. So the purpose of this rezoning is to amend a portion of the property at 7140 Egremont from agriculture 2 to open space 2. The purpose to allow for a private campground of up to 12 camping sites. So the open space 2 zone is the only zone within the township that permits private campgrounds. In terms of recommendations, I'll start off with that. Just after analysis of the application and the policies, planning recommends that council table the proposed zoning bylaw amendment until we have 3 recommendations. One, that environmental impact study be submitted and deemed acceptable by the township and county as required by the county's official plan and the township zoning bylaw. 2, correspondence received from St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority with regards to the campground within the regulated area surrounding provincial wetland. And 3, the completion of either one of the following, either an official plan amendment to permit a campground development on hazard designated lands, or a resolution confirming an exception to the natural hazard designation, pending an environmental impact study. So I'll explain those ones out. So in terms of a bit of the background, the subject property is located on Egmont, pretty much behind the Blue Water Pallet property. It's located within the Bear Creek watershed, and it's actually got lands within 3 different zones. So the bulk of it is agricultural 2, and then there's a wetland protection zone around the body's water, and then a couple of woodlot zones on there. So in terms of the provincial policy statements, it is important to leverage rural assets and amenities while protect the environment as a foundation for a sustainable economy. A coordinated and comprehensive approach should be used when dealing with planning matters within municipalities, including the management of natural heritage resources. So there is a significant provincial wetland on the area that has been identified by the Conservation Authority. There are 2 sections of the provincial policy statements that relate to this project. Sections 2.1.5 and 2.1.8 state that development or site alteration shall not be permitted in significant wetlands or the respective adjacent lands unless it has been demonstrated there will be no negative impacts on the natural features of the ecological functions. And the proposed campground is classed as a type of development. In terms of the county official plan, the property is designated agriculture, but it also contains Natural Heritage Group C corridor and Natural Group A wetland on the property. So typically no development or site alteration is permitted for Group A features. So that'd be the lake in the middle. Whereas development within a Group C feature should be controlled with the intent of improving the overall health of the natural system and its connections surrounding corridors. In terms of what adjacent lands are, they're actually defined within 120 meters of the wetland, the provincial significant wetland. Section 8.3.4 of the county official plan requires an environmental impact study to be created and approved prior to any development or site alteration within adjacent lands. So this study must consider the potential impacts of development, mitigation techniques, and opportunities for protection, rehabilitation, expansion of wetland features. The scope of that project that study would need to be discussed with the Conservation Authority to assess what that scope is. In terms of the county the township official plan, sorry. The property is designated agricultural, but is also within a natural heritage overlay designation. The use of lands in hazard areas, designated hazard areas, shall be restricted to agriculture, exclusive of buildings, conservation, forestry, parks, and other passive outdoor recreational uses. A campground is not considered a passive outdoor recreational use and is therefore not permitted on hazard designated lands. So therefore, prior to the rezoning of lands to open space 2 for the purposes of campground, an official plan amendment should occur to either permit this type of use within the natural heritage designation or to adjust the boundaries of the land is outside the designated area. So there is an option that council can consider under 10.1.4 where minor changes to the boundaries of hazard areas without an official plan amendment may occur, provided that a detailed assessment of the sensitive area or the hazard land has been undertaken to the satisfaction of the township. That's an option, which is one of the two recommendations, either an official plan amendment or the resolution by council subject to the environmental study. Under the zoning bylaw, so the standard open space 2 zone is the only zone that lists campgrounds. There is the environmental protection zones on the property. Under section 3.21.1 of the zone bylaw, a development within 120 meters of a wetland zone is subject to a site plan agreement. So the site plan agreement is the stage where we deal with the servicing of a development, access to the development, any landscaping, screening. So it's more of the detailed aspects of the project we deal with at that point. So typically site plans come with a detailed servicing plan as they're going to be water, sewer, electrical at that point. So this evaluation this site plan would also have to demonstrate that there will be no negative impact on the natural features of the wetland area. Under 3.21.2 of the zone bylaw, it states no permanent buildings or structures are permitted on lands which exhibit a hazardous condition as a result of flooding or marshy land cover. So that would tie back into the environmental study, would need to know where the lands that are possibly subject to flooding and marshy land covers. In terms of municipal services, there's servicing on the campground and the property will be addressed through the site plan process, and access is directly onto Egmont. And that's the summary of my, the other correction, there was a little bit of change between when the public notice went out and this this proposal. The location of the rezoning shifted a little bit. So originally the public notice had the zone right up against the water body, the wetland area. In discussions with Conservation Authority and their required 30-meter buffer zone, it's been pushed outside. So the map in the report shows the proposed location for the zone. And that's a summary of my report.
Thank you. We will now hear from those in favor of the bylaw first, and then hear presentations from those opposed. I'll ask anyone who would like to speak to this bylaw to please submit their name and full mailing address before they speak to it. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the bylaw?
Yeah, we would.
Okay.
We are the owners, Janet Watson and Robert Roy, 482 Corbett Drive, Windsor, Ontario, NAN 4R6. we're kind of tag teaming this here. So thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for hearing our application. I would like you to give you a quick history of my property that where I grew up in that same house, and I'm a third generation owner of the property. And my husband and I are planning to retire on this property in the not so distant future. And when we're done, we plan to pass it on to my children. So you heard the complexities of the property. It's something that I've been with for many, many years, and I understand and love more than anyone else can imagine. We've actually had trailers on the property since the 70s. My parents had a campground called Bear Lake Campground for many years on the property. And there was also mobile homes at one point, etc. It has a very long history. We also have always encouraged our neighbors to enjoy our property, including Brian's children who rode go-karts. They had a track on our property behind his property for many years. And my mom was always really good about it. And we've always encouraged our neighbors to come and visit to enjoy it. We will continue once COVID is over to encourage that usage as well, because otherwise it's just this big, beautiful property that's hidden behind a pallet factory that no one sees. Many of neighbors and friends have come back to the property to see me, and they're so excited about the idea of coming to camp. And I have 3 grown stepsons who have also joined us to work on enhancing the property and revitalizing it, because it had sat empty for a couple of years since my mother went into a home in Forest, where I put her so that I could be close to her when I lived in Warwick. So we've had very positive feedback, and we're very excited.
Okay. Sorry, I do see one of our neighbors here, Rachel. And I'm sorry we haven't reached out to you, Rachel. COVID's been kind of a tough thing for everybody.
We met your dad, though.
We met your dad. He came to our property, and we spent an afternoon with him. But anyway, our ultimate goal of this application is to be able to share this piece of land with the community, as well as enhance the area with a small family-run business. And small is the key here. As the application shows, we're only looking to do a small piece of the A2 property, and allowing for 12 campsites. So we do not want to impact the environment. It's important to us that we maintain and enhance the beauty, the nature of the property. I mean, the lake water, we've tested the water since we've kind of taken over the property. We've swam in it. My 5-year-old daughter loves to catch frogs and play on the shoreline pretty much every minute we're there. So we have a lot of love for this property. So in the last year, we've completed substantial cleaning of the property, including we planted 200 trees. We've done fence repair. We've removed debris. We've invested thousands of dollars with local businesses, farmers, suppliers, and we'll continue to work with these local businesses as we move forward. I've also been in contact with St. Clair Conservation Authority on many occasions that we discussed wildlife habitat that we want to maintain, species at risk. I've learned so much about the species that are here, as well as any tree planting programs. Again, we're very committed to this property. Our business plan is a back to nature type model, like a provincial park, which includes, so basically you come there, you enjoy that. It's not going to be seasonal camping where people bring trailers and garbage and debris. We're very much, it's very important to us. And we hope, again, once we get there, we're going to hire summer students to help maintain the property. These are things that, unless we're able to do this small business, that we really won't be able to enhance. I would love, I know we're in COVID and everything, but I'm going to give an open invitation to any counselor, neighbors, anybody that would walk the property with us, social distancing, obviously, and so we can really show you what the intent here is, because again, it's not this commercial type atmosphere. We've had a lot of family and friends come to the property to help experience and give us feedback. Some have even left trailers on the property in anticipation of being able to stay there. It also allows them to come for day trips, and we enjoy the surroundings. We're there every weekend. I mean, we even went Sunday this weekend just to cut grass. So I can assure you, under the site plan agreement, I assure you that under the site plan agreement, we'll address any legitimate issues and concerns by the community and neighbors. The last we want to do is negatively impact anybody. But we can't imagine not being able to bring others to the property, at the same time support ourselves and the community with our small business. That's all I think. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We will now hear from anybody who is interested in speaking. Is anybody else in favor of the project that would like to speak before we move on? Anyone who's interested in speaking against the proposal? Okay, is it Rachel? You are muted, Rachel.
Now can you hear me? Hi, I did submit my recommendations, proposal, whatever you would like to call it, on Friday. So I don't know if I don't think they made it before your emails went down. I just want to start by saying that the back of my property backs on to the proposed campsite rezoning. And to my understanding, if I'm correct, some of the proposed campsites will be approximately 100 meters from the back northeast of the back of my property. And this is a little concerning to me. As for privacy, sound, smell, and I understand it's meant to be more of a backcountry camping experience. And I will be the first to admit that I love to hunt and fish, and I grew up trapping. So, environmental impact for me is a concern, but I do fully believe that my neighbors, the potential business owners, have the best intentions, and being small business owners, I fully believe they have the best intentions, and that's saying that's great for my community, but not my backyard. I don't think anyone would love to have campsites directly in their backyard. So, if I'm correct at the distance, I just have a wire fence there and some trees, and I bought this place to be in a more rural area, to get away from town. And I would like to see if it's possible, if I am correct, would they consider putting the campsites farther back a greater distance, or relocating them so they're not as close to my property? But those are some recommendations I would like to see, possibly a noise barrier or a fence if this does get approved. I have no say if this does get approved, but if it does get approved, I would like some privacy. And, I agree with an environmental study. I do see a lot of deer and coyotes back there, and, waste disposal. I'm concerned about generators and ATVs and such, that could cause extra noise, and such as, campfire smells. And I would like to hope, as small business owners, they have a plan in place for implementing policies and procedures. So, I don't, you can't always control campers, and, like I said, I'm sure they have the best intentions. So it would put me at peace of mind to see that they have, policies in place, that if they have, campers that aren't following the rules, like what would they do to enforce it? I would like to see a noise bylaw, so it benefits both parties here. And, just a plan for waste disposal, like noise, and, I want to see the place be generally taken care of. And from that, those are my major concerns, especially privacy and, trespassers. I like to say, when people go camping, they like to have fun. So intoxicated people can be, they can be annoying from time to time. So, like, as long as they're going to enforce the rules and be good advocates for the environment, I would like to see that if this is passed. So anyway.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that input.
Thank you for listening.
Did you leave your address at the beginning?
My address is 7176 Egremont Road.
Okay, thank you. Just for procedural. Anybody else would like to speak to this? Council, do you have any questions or comments? There is a recommendation on Phil's report that we table this until we get more information. Councillor Westgate?
I guess my main concern is the sewage from the trailers. What do they plan on doing with that?
That's a good question. Yes, Mr. Roy, did you want to address that?
Yes, we can. The whole intention, so currently there is a septic system on, there's a single family home and a septic system on the property. We have plans kind of in the works, and it's going to be part of our site plan agreement, obviously. We would have to enhance that system. We have been designers, and it's very doable in the space that we have now. Ideally, we would love to be able to tell people to take their stuff with them. Garbage, again, you take, when you back county camp, you take your garbage with you. Kind of the premise is you bring that, you take everything you come with, and basically leave with memories only, and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to be on the property. Like, this is, for us, this is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. We are there. I understand Rachel's comments too, and trust me, it's we go to bed at 9:30 at night. I would be more afraid of waking my wife up at 9:30 than I would interrupting neighbors and stuff. But those concerns are all understandable. Like, we will work with Phil and planning and come up with a plan that's gonna make sure it enhances everybody.
The sewage will be part of the planning.
Yeah, it's all part of our planning.
We absolutely would not do anything without proper building and planning of taking care of sewage, even though we would prefer if the plan is people come in with their trailers and leave with their sewage. But we will have both options.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Westgate?
The marsh area, you say that's a lake now? It's shown on the drawing here. I don't
There's
see
a
the lake.
And then beyond the lake, there's the creek, and then there's the marshland beyond the lake. On the if you're looking at the property, the left-hand side of the lake.
Right behind the pallet factory is a very high area where the house is.
Yes.
And that is kind of where the camping area is really isolated to that. I don't even think we really go as far as Rachel's property, but we'd have to have a look, because so that high area is where trailers have been, like I said, since the 70s. We've just kind of put our trailer there now and my sister's trailer there to kind of get a feel for where it is. And I mean, we love to go there for weekends is what we're doing
and
now.
That's why we suggest you come to look at it, because if you saw, it's beautifully laid out. It doesn't affect the wetlands at all. And again, minimal to the neighbors is our goal, which is why we would share every bit of information and take input.
Is that not where the racetrack was before?
Yes.
Around the lake, yes.
The lake was the racetrack, yes.
Yeah, but they used to go right through there. They had figure 8 races there.
Yeah, I think Brian actually has an overhead shot of back in the day when it was a racetrack there. He showed me once. So like I said, there's a lot of history of this property. I'm going to send out an email to everybody, and if you're interested in coming, doing a walking tour or something, and we maintain our social distancing, I'm more than happy to have anybody out there.
So it's like Councillor Westgate has a lot of the history that
I can see
we always lean on him for the history of everything.
Where was that racetrack?
Just like Rachel's dad, when he came out, he seemed to know more of the history than I did. So we were very excited to hear
I'm
his
sure he would.
Yeah, he did. It was fantastic.
I remember going to races there, car races there when I was a kid.
I would love to hear your stories as well. I'm very new to the area. My wife introduced me to this area, and I've fallen in love with it. So,
Councillor Morris, did you have any comments? You are muted.
I got a question for Phil. Has this property always been agriculture, or was it something else before and was changed to agriculture without the people's knowledge? Has it always been agriculture?
To my knowledge, yes, it's always been agriculture with the sprinkling of the environmental zones around the creek and the wetlands. So it's agricultural too, which isn't from what I can gather, it's always been agricultural.
It just seems that the history has been a campground and a racetrack. Why all of a sudden is it now agriculture?
As to whether or not it was legal campground, I have no knowledge of that. It may have just been, yeah.
Okay, thank
Actually,
you.
local homes on it at one point too. So it's not even that. So I don't know. That must have been legal at some point as well. There was 3 homes. So interesting. I'm not sure what happened in there, but then things happened differently 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
I'm sure it was never a legal racetrack either.
Maybe.
No, it's probably 65 years ago since they had races there.
Oh, yeah.
Or
And I
Is that where they did the Maxmobile time trials?
I think Brian's property even had like a bear on it at one point. Like they had people used to go see a bear there or something. That I'm hearing. I don't know. Just it's very interesting history. Sorry.
Bill, I have a question about the official plan. Like, what kind of amendment are we looking at here? Is this an amendment through the county's official plan? And if so, is that not like a egregious kind of process to try to do?
No, the official plan would be just at the county level. I'll back up my report so I know what I'm talking about. There is county official. So pretty much at the county level, they require that environmental study to be done to allow for development. So it says no development is allowed on a group C without that environmental study. So they still permit development on the group C setup, but they just need to make sure you're not going to impact the wetland or the ecological functions through there. So the scope of that would have to have a discussion with the Conservation Authority on. At the township level, there's the 2 options: either go through a full official plan amendment process, or if the environmental study comes back and says, hey, the development is outside the hazard area, it's not going to impact the wetland, council can approve a minor adjustment of the boundary of the designated area to exempt the campground from that designation. It's all going to be tied into that environmental study and make sure it's outside of the sensitive areas.
Okay, council, just in the name of time, Phil did give us a recommendation that this be tabled. Do we have a motion to reflect that, Councillor Mitchell?
I'd like to move that we accept the recommendation as written.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that? Councillor White? Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. So for those of you, just to clarify, what we've just decided to table this issue until the environmental plans and the Conservation Authority comes back with more information. It was important to council to hear from the neighbors, and that's all part of this process of doing this rezoning, is to make sure that everybody is okay and comfortable with things before we proceed. And so that's where we're going with this. And Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor Ramba. So just want to make one closing comment about our public consultation, and to Rachel's point about her correspondence that we received but haven't shared yet. So when this matter comes back to council, we will ensure that Rachel's comments, and if there are any other written correspondence that we've received, will be included in that agenda package also for council and the applicant to review, and for it to be publicly available for anyone else who wishes to view or has an interest in this matter.
Okay,
Just want to
thank you.
confirm that. Thank you.
Thank you. So the public meeting is now concluded. Council has made a decision based on the recommendation given to us by our county planner, and any person or agency may appeal to the local planning appeal board tribunal in respect to the bylaw by filing with the clerk of the Township of Warwick no later than 20 days after the day that written notice was given. A notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, plus the applicable fee to the LPAT. Thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you probably at the next meeting addressing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Leafs.
Thanks, guys. We will give Amanda a minute to allow Ken Mellinson and Mary Lou Tanner into the meeting. Hi, Ken, how are you?
Rushed.
I know well, we were running a bit behind, so I hope that worked out okay for you and your schedule. Sorry, Mary Lou, for the bit of a delay there.
It worked out perfectly well, Mayor Rombouts. Mary Lou has been texting me, going, where are you? Where are you? So it worked out fine.
So the delay actually was in your favor then. That's good.
Oh, sorry, I just put my phone down. What was it you just said, Mary Lou?
So the delay didn't go bad for you. It wasn't like, oh, what are they doing?
No, it was perfect. And I think, Mary Lou, what was it you just said? You sent me
just in the nick of time.
Yeah, there.
Sometimes these things go along for a reason, right? So
yep.
Okay, so we have, according to our agenda, that you're going to give us an update. And just a reminder to council that no decisions are going to be made tonight. This is an update from Ken and Mary Lou, just to give us an idea of the next process for our planning process. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ken and Mary Lou, and we look forward to it.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts. Maybe I'll start, and if I miss anything, Mary Lou, you can jump in. So as council is aware, when we last spoke with you about the Warwick official plan update, there was some conversations related to the settlement boundary. And as we talked about, the settlement boundary is dealt with through the county's official plan. And there was some discussion about the possibility of looking at moving some of the settlement area from a portion of land that it currently lies on, I believe I'm going to get the geography wrong. So on the east side of Watford to sort of the north side. And I know that's probably wrong. So I'll just say the side that is towards the 402, the Tim Hortons side, as I like to call it.
Yes, I would refer it to like the northwest side of town.
Yeah. So we did go back to have a conversation with the province because they're the ones through the PPS that outline process in terms of what to consider and things like that. I will say that we had a very productive and very positive meeting with them. I would go so far as to say that of all the discussions that they typically have on the issue of swap of the settlement boundary that the London office has dealt with, this is likely the one that will probably actually occur or at least have a good chance of occurring, I should say, as opposed to most of the other discussions. One of the technical challenges that these land swaps run into is, of course, recognizing that by removing the settlement boundary designation from a piece of property, you've basically removed development rights, which is pretty much why most of them don't occur. You're in the position where the land that is subject to being removed from the settlement area is actually township land. So if the township is supportive of this idea, then obviously you're getting over one of the most critical hurdles, which is having a landowner willing to accept that. That said, what we wanted to discuss was what we felt was the best path forward if you wish to go down this road. And frankly, it's not an easy process. There is a lot of work that has to be done, number of studies, number of items that will need to be submitted as part of that process. What we wanted to report back to you was our recommendation that this likely should be an applicant-initiated process versus the township making an application to do so. And it's mainly from the perspective of cost. You're frankly going to need to hire a planning consultant if the township makes the application because of the fact that Mr. Ruff can't do the application. He's tied to the county. So therein lies an additional cost. The studies, of course, that will be required for this review that are laid out in the PPS will have to be paid for. And then, of course, there's the cost of if there's any peer review. We charge that cost back if it's done through an external consultant to whomever is actually doing the process. That is not to say that we're not open to the idea of an amendment to look at the chance of moving the boundary, but we do think that it would be prudent that that be an applicant-initiated process versus the township moving forward. So that's really what we wanted to report back. I'm not sure if I missed anything, Mary Lou.
Just to clarify, Ken, you're recommending that the developers that are interested in developing that property be the applicant that moves this process forward as opposed to the township?
That's
due to
correct.
the costs. And
Yes.
what costs, like, can you give us a rough estimate on how expensive the process would be?
I think I'm going to have to ask for some help from you, Mary Lou, on this, because I'm probably going to ballpark it way too high, but.
So through Mayor Rumboats, it's going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, and I would say upwards of $50,000, and perhaps closer, to be honest, closer to $100,000, because there's agricultural studies that need to be done. In your case, there's some natural heritage, there's some justification work in terms of forecasting population and housing growth, and there's no aggregate issues, but there's a whole host of things that need to be done in the county's official plan, as well as the provincial policy statement, servicing all of that. And then you get to the layout of the subdivision and things like that. So the ones I dealt with in the township of West Lincoln, it was significant. It was well into six figures. There were aggregate issues there, but it was well into six figures for most of the other studies.
So what happens if council does decide to move forward with this and then the developer, for whatever reason, decides not to develop in that property, in that space?
Well, through your worship, and maybe I'll start. If I miss something, Mary Lou, jump in. I think you would be taking on the risk that you would be paying for an application and the process to get the settlement boundary adjusted, and then the applicant would not proceed forward, which is part of why we believe it's better to be an applicant initiated process, because this way, if the applicant doesn't wish to proceed, and I don't know the answer to that question, then they will initiate the application when they're ready to proceed, or they won't initiate it at all if they choose not to proceed.
Council, do you have any questions? This is a lot of information all at once, I think. Councillor White.
Do we have to, if we're making an application anyway, can we just expand the boundary? Like past, like out other properties? So if council decided, can our boundary go, can we put an application in for a further boundary for future development too, as part of this $100,000 process or whatever?
So you're suggesting adding more residential lands to our
Yep.
whole plan?
Yes.
That's the question.
So through your worship, maybe I'll start, and Mary Lou, as always, if I miss something, jump in. There's two levels of county settlement boundary applications that you could have. The least difficult, if you want to call it that, is the settlement boundary adjustment, which would be a swap, which is a net zero exercise, meaning if I take 50, I'm going to make up a number. If I take 50 hectares from the east side and I then have to plunk that 50 hectares to the north, I don't get to increase my numbers at all. So the net area that you have for settlement remains the same. If you're going to apply for settlement area expansion, then you get into even greater levels of detail. So in fact, I would say the cost to you would actually, or the cost to do such an application would increase, because it's actually a greater level of detail that would have to be acquired. Mary Lou, did I miss anything there?
No, that's entirely correct. And if you want to add, you're also going into a whole process that the county then has to undertake that asks every other municipality in the county, do you want to add? And then the county has to assess where's the best place to add, assuming it can be justified. The swap, which is in Ken's example, take 50 from the southeast and put it in the northwest, you're pretty much driving the bus. You're going to, as we're recommending, let the applicant proceed, but you're generally saying we're okay with that. And we are prepared to take lands out of the southeast and allow them to be added elsewhere in the community, but you're going to have a great say in the where. The other option you're looking at, you're going into a whole pool with all the other municipalities in the county.
Thank you. Yeah, that clarifies.
Councillor Westgate.
Is it going to be like, say, 100,000 more than if it was already zoned residential? Like, if it was zoned residential, how much would it be? They still have to do their plan of subdivision and do the survey and do everything, right? How much more are they going to have to do? I guess is what I'm asking, from what they have to do now.
Yes, it would be an additional $50,000 to $100,000 is what they're saying
Additional?
for the developer. Yes. On top of what they would normally have to do with their site plans and all of the rest.
Oh, you're muted.
Councillor Morris?
Yeah.
You have a question? You can.
I find it very strange that the applicant can't be us, since we're the property owner. We're the ones that want to change this. Why? I think we should be the applicant.
We can be. We can go
I
forward.
don't understand your reasoning of why the developer would be the applicant.
Through your worship, if
Yes, Ken, do you want to address that?
Dave, I can, and then Mary Lou can jump in. Part of it is you need to look at the cost benefit of what expense that you're incurring as part of undertaking such an application. So at this point, you only have one landowner that's going to benefit from the municipality who's going to take on this cost. The other key principle to remember is you're now into a period of growth. And one of the things you need to really understand is that growth needs to pay for growth, meaning that part of undertaking an application and part of going through this process is you have it, well, for lack of a better term, it's a pay-to-play system. So there are costs associated with undertaking an application, regardless of whether you're the applicant or whether it's a private landowner. And it goes back to that cost-benefit analysis. Not sure if I missed anything or if you want to add another point there, Mary Lou.
The only thing I would add is the issue, well, two issues, risk and market. And it goes to an earlier comment that I think the mayor made, but it may have been another councillor. So when a developer is bringing a project forward, they've assessed the market and they believe there is a viable, positive cash flow return in the marketplace for that housing project. And so as a municipality, it's not typical that that work is done by municipalities. So you would be, in essence, accepting that there is a future market for this land. Now, there probably is, to be honest, given everything we're seeing in terms of the population growth in Warwick. But the other aspect of it is the risk. And, you know, housing markets are cyclical, and we have been in a very long boom, very long, since the market started recovering after the 2008 crash. But the 2008 crash was a bad one. And if you're doing all of these studies as the applicant and paying for it, you are taking the inherent risk that there will be a return within a few years on that land. So you are essentially betting on the housing market. And as Ken said, growth should pay for growth. So, you know, don't bear the cost of what a developer would normally do, but also understand that in doing those studies, that developer is taking the risk, and transferring that risk to them is a better decision in my view.
Councillor Morris.
One quick question, I guess. I don't know if I understand this fully, but we're redoing our official plan. Is this not a, or can this be done anytime?
That's a good question. He's asking if we're in the process of redoing our official plan. Is this less expensive to do it now, or can it be done after the official plan's done? Is that correct? Sorry, Councillor Morris, you were kind of breaking up, so I'm just trying to clarify it for people.
It can be done at any time. It doesn't have to be done as part of your official plan, and it actually starts as a county official plan amendment.
Okay, any other questions, Council?
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, but at the beginning of the presentation, this is information for Council to kind of mull over at this point. And I don't believe we're looking for any decisions tonight. So lots to think about, and probably discussion with the developer and discussion amongst Council will be in order going forward. So is there anything else we need to cover with this delegation, Amanda? Okay.
I don't
Thank
think
you both.
Mary Lou. Just want to make sure that, sorry, you're on mute.
I think we've covered everything, yes.
Okay, so what is our next steps going forward for the official plan then? Just so Council is aware.
Thank you, Mayor Rombouts. We're anticipating bringing you an update at your June Council meeting, which I think is 2 weeks tonight, just on the agency comments and feedback we've received. I can tell you we received comments from the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. We did not receive comments from the other conservation authority that covers Warwick Township. And we received some comments from OMAFRA on a few issues related to the agricultural policy. So we'll have an update on what those comments are and our proposed response. And then we anticipate that we will be bringing the official plan to you for adoption in July.
Okay, that's great. All right, thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we will let you get back to your evening then.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. All right, Council, is everybody good? We can keep moving forward, or does anybody need a break? We're good? Okay, so we are going to go back on the agenda down to 11F, which is the Victoria Street and Warwick Street intersection. There is a report there for Council. Councillor Mitchell, we deliberately skipped this one because we knew we wanted you to be a part of the discussion. So we do have a recommendation there. How does Council want to deal with that recommendation? Counselor Morris.
I got a question. What's the speed limit at the East Lambton public school?
I believe it's 40.
50?
Is it 50?
Is it 40?
It all residential streets are 50 unless they're posted otherwise,
So it's still 50.
to my knowledge.
Okay. Counselor Westgate.
Just a point that he's going to lower it in all school zones down to 40, not just along that street.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
So
when my kids were doing their driver's license thing, they said you have to slow down to 40 when you go in a school zone.
I don't even think it's marked as school zone. Well, maybe it is.
Okay. And any other questions? Counselor Mitchell.
No, I just, again, very much want to voice my appreciation for the study that's been done so far. And I'd like to move the recommendation as it's written. Lowering the speed limit in the school zones is very important, I believe. And if we can get some more information, then we're better informed. So I'm very much in favor of that recommendation and appreciative.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder to that? Counselor White. Any other discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we covered the committee and other minutes. We're going to go on to 13A, which is new business. And I believe that's just a reminder to council that nominations are going to be accepted for the Township of Warwick Senior of the Year at a future meeting. So just a reminder that everybody needs to be thinking in terms of that for this year's nomination. And we don't need a motion to receive and file that, do we, Amanda? No, thank you. And then there is a Mckay drain petition here as well. Do we need a motion to receive and file that or anything to move forward with that?
We do. Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. Sorry, it looks like our recommendations didn't print on our agenda. I believe, and I'm looking to Andrew and Heather to correct me in case I'm wrong, but I believe it's accepting the petition and moving forward with next steps, which is usually to notify the Conservation Authority and perhaps Breed Associates. Is that right? Andrew's nodding, something like that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Counselor White, seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. All right, council, we are in that portion of the meeting where we will be moving into a closed meeting session for the reasons listed on the agenda. Do we have a mover and a seconder to that? Moved by Counselor White, seconded by Counselor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening. We will be returning to open session, but only to adjourn the meeting. So I appreciate everyone coming. Before we move into in camera, Counselor Mitchell, did you have any counselors? So what is the word I'm looking for?
Items.
Counselors' items for us.
Just wanted to express gratitude for us lowering the flags this morning. It's a very important cause and something that I think is the responsibility of all citizens in this country. And, even though we're a small municipality, these small steps really do add up to great things. So I just wanted to voice that appreciation as well.
Yes, and just so you know, we did have a moment of silence in memory of those children, and our hearts and prayers are going out to everyone involved in that situation. It was just awful. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will move into our in-camera session and we will say goodnight to our YouTube viewers. Have a good evening. Take care and stay safe.